for the listener, Kwame's favourite speech is actually a speech that we don't have the permission to read today.
I know,
So
isn't
we
that
had a
hilarious?
last minute manic sort of, oh gosh, is there something else that we could look at as well? Because I definitely don't want to abandon your favourite speech. We have to talk
However, what I would say
about
is
it.
that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
Because then I started to kind of dig and go, what else? Where else could I look? And then
yeah,
I found a speech that I had read, oh, maybe 20 years ago, a play that I'd read.
yeah.
And I went, oh my God, I remember that speech. And so I'm really overjoyed that actually it gave me the opportunity to dive back in.
Shall we begin with the one that came to you most instinctively? Do you
Mm.
want to tell us what that was or what play it was from?
Yeah, well, it was from August Wilson's play, Joe Turner's Come and Gone. And this play is number 2 in the Pittsburgh cycle, a kind of
Mm,
century of plays that August Wilson, a 10-play cycle
mm,
of one in every decade of the 20th century. And this is the play, I think, that made me know in my soul that I wanted to be a playwright and that I wanted to be in theatre.
so for people who don't know him that well, I feel like
Mm.
he's recently become better known because we've got Ma Rainey's Black Bottom with
Yes.
all kinds of Oscar nominations or whatever, and Fences was a huge hit.
Yeah, I mean, he's O'Neill. He's
Right.
and no other American playwright actually achieved what he set out to do and did it.
Mm,
And most importantly, a bit like George Bernard Shaw and a bit like Shakespeare, actually, there are players who have made their entire career of being in August Wilson plays, and directors who've had
yeah.
their entire career directing his plays. The thing that makes a Wilsonian play is that beautiful merge, that marriage between um, poetry and politics, of,
Mm,
of history and of soul.
mm,
And there is a kind of giddy, heady mix of, of remembrance and a projection to the future as a kind of almost, these plays are an exercise in filling you up and reclaiming lost ground, cultural lost ground. The first thing, anytime I read an August Wilson play and I see a page of dialogue,
mm.
I get ready to be enchanted.
Lovely.
I know he's going to take me somewhere deep.
Yeah.
and and it's the storytelling. He's journeying, he's taking a bend, and then he's taking another bend, and there's something supernatural about it, that because he's telling, it's a dream.
I was about
And
to
every
say, is it a dream? Is it some kind
Yeah,
of a
it's
dream?
a
Yeah.
dream, and everything is bigger than life, but like all dreams, or like most dreams, they're metaphors.
Hmm.
And 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 that he spots his father in it,
Mm,
in this dream,
mm.
and that his father speaks with him. Again, there is just the magic. There's a wonderful line in it where he says, and I could lay down and die a happy man, a man who done left his mark on life.
Mm.
And it's just like, I mean, again, not that this is the be all and end all of everything, but this is the politic of self-determination. This is the politic of thinkers like Marcus Garvey. It is the self-determination of Aristotle, who speaks about
Mm.
leaving the world incrementally better
Yes.
than when you woke.
Yes.
And so there is something about about him talking about a dream,
Yeah.
and the dream, in this dream, he will get the clues that will lead him to find himself.
Mm.
It's simply magic to me.
And you're right. We can all change the world in some small way. I mean, there's some great play or film, and I'm now nervous as I say it that it's just going to end up being Mean Girls or something awful like that. But I feel like somewhere at the back of my memory, there's a lovely quote that's like, you can't change the world, but you can change someone's world, or whatever it
Yeah,
is. The
yeah, yeah,
idea of
yeah.
to have a purpose or to change the world, it can be on a minute basis, but you need to feel like, oh well, I did something, I made someone else's life a little better, or
Amen.
you are the first guest I've had on the show who is a writer as well.
Hmm.
To what extent do you find when you write that you mimic these people you respect?
Well, that's a really good question for me because, of course, August was my hero,
Mm.
but I knew that I was never a poet, so therefore I couldn't imitate it even if I tried.
Mm.
But what I tried to find was the thing that I think that I do well,
Mm.
which is to observe human beings and then kind of um, you know create dialogue
Mm.
that will feel authentic
Yes.
to that voice, to that spirit, to that soul. So no, I didn't. I mean, also, for instance, I used to be very fond of David Mamet. Um,
Mm.
and what I would lift from Mamet, for instance,
Mm.
was the energy that went behind the dialogue, the
100%.
energy that went into the sentence. Are there too many words? Is the rhythm right? Like I would do that.
I totally agree with the what you said about Mamet. I remember being taken to see Sexual Perversities in Chicago when I was like 15 or something, and just
Mm.
being blasted backwards by
Yeah.
the whole thing. And I know he is a troublesome man in many ways, we'll put it that way. But yes, I do find them very thrilling to watch. I also like, because he wrote True or False, and it
Yes.
was the only I would say, like, practitioner book that I ever found really helpful, because actually the side of him that makes him troublesome is
Yeah.
also the side that actually appealed to my sense of acting, which was
Uh,
a bit more fuck it, a
yeah.
bit
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of like, you're going to be who you're going to be, and you're going to do it
Yeah.
to the,
Yeah.
and he always said that thing of never come off stage after a bad night. And if you've got a friend or family in, go, oh, I'm sorry, it was a bad night, because
Yeah.
they
They
won't
don't
have
know.
known any different. And
Yeah.
to them, the difference between your bad night and your good night is like minute,
Yeah.
impossible for them to recognize.
I was very influenced by his Three Cuts of the Knife. I think that's what
Oh,
it's
I don't
called.
know
Again,
that.
it's a brilliant book on the writing process. There was a wonderful thing that he speaks about, which is kind of Act Two fatigue, and it's when you're rolling that boulder up the hill. You come out of the gates with Act One, like with the like a kind of a hair out of the
Yeah.
gates, and then you get into Act Two and you start running out of juice, and you're just pushing that boulder up the hill. And then by the time you've got to the end of Act Two, you're actually quite exhausted, and
Yeah.
so you kind of race through Act Three.
So
and
true.
and it's so true, and I recognize that in my own writing, and then I go, okay, so that was just the rushed Act Three.
So what about the specific speech you've picked?
And this play, I believe, about Nat Turner, and Nat Turner was a revolutionary
Mm.
in the southern part of America who led a slave rebellion,
Mm.
and was yeah, and it did not succeed, but it was one of the foundation stones, I would
Mm.
say, that rocked the United States and the world, that helped to bring about the emancipation of those who were enslaved. Do you know, one of my favorite musicals is the musical Ragtime. And there's a wonderful moment right at the end when Coleman, well, I can't remember what the character's name is, Coleman Wheelhouse Jr. or something.
Right.
And and basically he bought a brand new car. It's set at the turn of the century, into the 20th century. And he bought a brand new car, and some racists have kind of smashed it up.
Right.
And he tries everything that he can in order to get some justice. And when he can't get some justice, he then holds a library hostage.
Mm.
And there's a brilliant scene right at the end where he kneels and he says, Lord, tell me what to do next. And this scene reminds me of
Mm.
that thing when righteous rage consumes you. And then there's a moment when that rage leaves you. And
Mm.
it can almost feel as if you were possessed. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It can just almost feel
No.
like if your whole world, you were a host for something else. And I'm
Mm.
really fascinated by the energies that mix with our bodies, the
Mm.
energies that lead us forward, the spirit that
Mm.
allows us to get up in a day and say, I'm going to change the world. And I
Mm.
think this play kind of does that a little bit, or explores it a little bit.
I mean, it would have been really obnoxious, wouldn't it, if you were like, my favourite speech is actually from a play by Kwame Kwei-Armah.